All right, we set? Good evening, folks. This is a meeting of the Holliston Economic Development Committee. It's a meeting via Zoom, so I have to read this announcement. Pursuant to the governor's order superseding certain provisions of the open meeting law, Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 38, Paragraph 20, as well as the Select Board's emergency order dated 3/16/2020, the EDC will be using remote participation for this meeting. Audio of the meeting is being recorded. We're also being shown on HCAT. And the meeting will be posted on the town's website within 24 hours in accordance with the governor's emergency action order, requiring the keeping the public informed of actions during this meeting. I would ask that all participants remotely attending the meeting, please state your name for identification purposes each time you speak throughout the meeting. And for those people on the phone, when Christine, who will be in charge of getting to people to speak, and we'll get to that, I'm assuming, in regards to the 555 Hupperingbrook Road matter. Those people on the phone that are going to speak, you have to dial *9 to access for communication. So at this time, I'll take a roll call vote. Myself, Peter Barberi, here. Matt?
Present.
Christine?
Present.
Glenn?
Present.
I think that's it in the committee at this point in time. So the first item agenda should be relatively quick as we have our budget. We did receive a guideline from the Finance Committee, which was basically keeping a level budget. So I circulated that. It looks like they're kind of reducing the line items. So for this year, we're only having 2 line items. One is the same combination of the other line items for 13,867, and the other one is office and supplies, and that's 200, and that's kind of where that's been. So the total budget is 14,067. Travis did send me an email that said it does not look like, at least for this year, any type of joint employee position with Hopkinton is going to be available. So if we approve this budget, we'll have money in the account for getting a staff person, however we proceed to do that later on in the year. So any other questions on that, folks?
I don't have questions about the budget. I know that we've discussed, though, utilizing some form of shared employee with another town. We met with the economic director for the town of Ashland. And I think generally we recognize the need to have someone in a position who can help coordinate and facilitate things like grant programs, applications, things that are useful to this committee to help us keep informed and in touch. One thing I'd like to start exploring throughout the course of this year, maybe in lieu of a shared employee, is seeing if we can't go down the road of something in the form of an elected position as like an economic director. That would be a town resident that would run for the position and could potentially be compensated for the time through stipend if that becomes a reality, which I think is a separate issue before the select board. But I think that's an alternative to consider. I know it's a long path in terms of actually achieving it. I think it requires, some special legislation or bylaw amendment. But, the point is, I think it's an alternative worth considering if, a partial or full-time employee is unrealistic. So I'm just throwing that out there.
I don't want to get stuck in terminology. Personally, I don't think I'd be in favor of that as an elected position. Mm-hmm. I think the position makes a lot of sense, but I don't know if I'd look at it as elected, because if nobody runs and somebody writes in somebody's name, now you're stuck with somebody, you don't know what the qualifications are, you don't know anything. So I think it would be, to me, more of a, going through the process and resumes and make people are certified to be in that role than an elected position. So, it's certainly something we can have more discussion on. And again, the way, as I understand the budget now, it gives us more flexibility, either in the nature of hired position or, hiring somebody in as a consultant for a specific job or not.
Right, right. And maybe there is some sort of alternative somewhere in between in terms of a consultant, right? So alternative solutions is something I think worth considering. So.
Any other comments on budget or anything along those lines?
I would just say, Peter, if you don't mind, you obviously, the way that the town accountant handled 21, and I think I've mentioned this previously, is that the money was moved into a line that gives you a little more flexibility. So you could hire a consultant within this fiscal year with the budget that you have in 21. Right now, if you want to consider that again, right? And so instead of the personal services line, it's in purchase services, right? You could contract with somebody to sort of give you any assistance you need. So this group can obviously consider, it has a little flexibility within this fiscal year and then looking ahead. If there's anything that you want to consider or have me look at or bring back to you, just let me know. But obviously the budget was set for this year, and in that spreadsheet it shows what you've expended, which is your basic needs and the website and those types of things at this point.
Okay. So if there's nothing else, somebody want to make a motion to approve a budget of 14,067?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any other questions, comments? All in favor, roll call vote. Myself, Matt,
Aye.
Christine,
Aye.
Glenn.
Aye.
Okay, so that's the budget. So now on to industrial parks and 555 Hopping Brook Road. At our last meeting, we had a presentation as well as questions from the public on that. The decision, I believe, was to move forward to draft a letter in support based upon those comments to the planning board. Christine has done that. That's been circulated to us. I'm going to ask her that she kind of take us through the bullet points of her comments, which personally I agree with. So why don't you just take it through that from the viewpoint of the public? We will offer the opportunity to provide comment on the items that are brought up. We're not going to involve ourselves with anything beyond the financial matters we talked about at last meeting and the ones that are in this letter. So, Christine?
Sure. Peter, were you going to share the letter on your screen too? And I'll read it for people who aren't viewing a screen. I'll summarize, but I'll read our bullet points. But for those who do have a screen, we should put it up there.
Let me get rid of this so we can. All right.
Okay, so I'm going to start kind of midway through because I just summarized at the beginning how we've been having public discussion over the last several months about this. And I state our mission and again, saying, given this mission, we've approached all discussions surrounding 555 Hopping Brook Park from an economic standpoint for the Holliston community. It is our viewpoint that the proposed property development within 555 Hopping Brook Park would be a positive addition to Holliston's local economy based on the following points. Industrial zone property. 555 Hopping Brook Park has been an industrialized zone property within Holliston for more than 2 decades. It's well within the landowner's rights to develop the property as currently proposed with town approvals as required. The EDC believes that it's critically important for the future health of Holliston's economy that the town works with property owners to develop industrial zone land to attract tenants, buyers that will continue to add to Holliston's commercial tax base. Estimated tax revenue and jobs created. The proposed development at 555 Hopping Brook Park is conservatively estimated to add more than $1 million in new tax revenue to Holliston. Holliston is a community in need of increasing its commercial tax base. Given the town's location, infrastructure shortfalls, i.e. limited highway access, lack of town sewage, attracting commercial residents is difficult. The estimated tax revenue from the proposed project would be significant to the town. In addition, the proposed project is expected to add several hundred jobs to the community. Community enhancements. The property owner and proposed tenant at 555 Hopping Brook Park have agreed to several enhancements to the Holliston community as part of the project. This includes a new traffic signal at the Hopping Brook Park / Route 16 intersection and enhancements to the pedestrian crosswalks for the Upper Charles Trail crossings at Hopping Brook Road and Church Street. Downtown traffic. While there are significant public concerns regarding increased truck traffic, based on the data provided to the EDC, it is our understanding that this traffic will be traveling to and from the 495 interchange. We believe that adding a facility of this size and estimated tax revenue to Holliston without the added traffic through Holliston downtown is an economic benefit to the community. We also want to acknowledge public concerns that have been raised regarding the project. Increased truck traffic. The proposed project would add significant truck traffic to Route 16 and potentially South Street. The developer has agreed to a restriction that all truck traffic is prohibited from the use of South Street to travel to or from the site. Medway abutters. Several Medway residents in neighborhoods abutting 555 Hoppingbrook Park have expressed concern over the proposed project and potential detrimental impacts to their residential properties. The EDC is aware that the developer has paid $3,000 to every abutter in Medway and that the matter is subject to litigation. Though the EDC appreciates the concerns of Medway abutters, the EDC is not the forum for which such concerns can be resolved. After reviewing these economic benefits and concerns, the EDC would like to voice our support of the proposed development at 555 Hoppingbrook Park to the Holliston Planning Board. Sincerely, the Holliston Development Committee.
The only thing I had in the letter is just adding in, they said they were also going to have a looping of the water line, which would provide benefit to the park. So that's my only comment on the letter. I think otherwise, I think it's very well done, and thank you. Committee members?
I think the letter, summarizes well both what our mission is and the information that has been presented to us and how it is that we're to consider that information. I like the way the letter is drafted. I think it makes clear the benefits that we perceive related to the project, and I think it's well summarized.
Glenn Brown here. I would just add to that sentiment as well in terms of it being well organized. In addition, it's hard to bring everything that's been discussed over the last 12 months into, a page-and-a-half document. In reality, this could have been, dozens of pages in terms of what's been discussed and thought throughout the process. I would add Peter as well in terms of the benefit about the loop in the water line. I think that should be looked at as well, and as well as if there's anything else that we're not thinking of at this point. And I can't think of anything in terms of other benefits from an economic perspective that this project would provide.
Yeah, that was the only thing that I could recall that we talked about at the last meeting. So everybody in agreement to add that to the letter?
Yes.
Agreed.
All right, so if there's nothing else from the committee, again, we'll open it up to the public for purposes of discussing those bullet points. We're not going into past discussions, and we're not going into discussions again about the project. So people who want to speak, raise your hand, or
Yeah,
it works.
if people want to use the hand raising tool, I'll call on people. Those who are on a phone and not on a computer, if you press *9, that will put you in the queue. Okay, first we have Ann McElhinney.
Hi, Steve McElhinney, 12 Carriage House Way, Medway. All I wanted to say is I thought originally the letter was going to list the pros and cons, and I feel like you've listed a lot of the pros, but I think a major con is the Holliston property values. I mean, I expect with all with the truck traffic going, through Holliston and the streets that it does affect, that there's a good case that their property values would be lower, thereby lowering the tax revenue for the town. So I feel like, if you're going to list pros and cons, that's a very likely con in my mind. And I also think you're understating the increased traffic. We don't even know what type of building that's going to be. We know it's going to be a huge warehouse building of 800,000 square feet. We know there's going to be another 600,000 square foot warehouse building as well, but we still don't know the end use. So you really don't even know what the increased truck traffic is or isn't going to be.
Thank you. Next.
Yeah. Ed Hoffron. Oh, here we go. Ed.
Here we go. Yes. Thank you. Yeah, I just had a couple issues. The assessed value, so one of the benefits, assessed value, is that,
Let me stop there. I think as Christine put in the letter, the issue of property values is not our determination. I will, however, say that, let me finish. A reduction in the value of one parcel will not reduce the taxes overall to the town. It simply spreads it to everybody else. So understand that even with valuation reduction, if there's any in Holliston neighborhoods, would not result in an overall reduction to the town in taxes. Go ahead.
all right, I was actually talking about the assessed value of the development.
Okay.
Okay, and my question is, I think it said approximately $1 million, perhaps additional tax revenue. Is that, what if in, say, 5 years, the tenant decides this business model doesn't work and exits the lease, so it's just the building sitting there and there's no business activity? Is the assessed value based on, would the assessed value be, and the tax revenue be affected?
It would be ultimately a period of time where I'm sure the property owner would try to seek abatements on it. But we have had buildings in Holliston vacant for 3 and 4 years. We have not significantly changed the valuation because you don't look at it as it's vacant 1 year. You look at it, it's kind of like a 10-year span type thing, and also the opportunity for somebody to come in and buy it. So if the property goes vacant for a year or two, I don't see us changing the values.
All right. Employment was another benefit, and I believe it said perhaps several hundred jobs. Is the benefit to the town, I'm assuming that employment might not just be Holliston residents. So is the benefit there from the employment for Holliston residents? And if it's employment by residents of, say, Milford or other adjoining towns, does that generate any benefit to Holliston?
Having two aspects. That one, having more employees in town presumably has them using whatever account services there are. But you make a good point. Maybe we should add in the letter that the planning board should consider asking as to whether preference should be given to Holliston residents for employment.
Yes, because I think that's the main benefit to the town. Right. Okay. The comment about South Street and the trucks, and I understand that, but if a truck is coming from 495 into Holliston, isn't South Street, well, it's a different name, but it goes through Medway. So is that I forget what that restriction or whatever it is. Do you know, just doing it for South Street seems to me may not, wouldn't keep them out of, say, Medway. Once they're on the street in Medway, they're just going to drive into South Street. Do you know if anything has been done with, if the developer is going to also work with Medway to do the same restriction?
Medway would have to make determinations of what they could do. I know there's specific requirements or limitations from the viewpoint of truck routes, truck limitations on roads that run between two towns. I don't know if that applies, and it probably wouldn't certainly apply to, 126, because that's a state set up roadway.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, our point here, and I think that the committee's in agreement that the potential benefit, because of the size of this project, they have the right to control their trucks out to 16 in down to Milford. So that's the point we're making. That's the only point we're making. That's the only one we're really discussing.
Okay. Oh, and I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Ed Coffrin. I live in Piedmont Drive, which is in the Balancing Rock condo development, so a little west of this project.
Yeah.
I understand what you said about home value, and following on the previous comment, we're seeing benefits, nothing about really downside, and I understand, we're not sure, but has the town looked at other projects, either in Holliston? I don't know that there's anything like this, but other industrial parks, or maybe in neighboring towns, to in hindsight, to see, have there been any costs, say, that have arisen that have had to be addressed?
Yeah, again, it's not the planning board, to be honest with you. Consideration as to values off-site. but I will.
I'm just thinking, like, let's say there have to be future road improvements on 16. I don't know even if the town would have to incur that cost, but, or someone brought up the value of home values. You said that hasn't been affected, but do we have any experience with other similar projects and have found that there have been either additional benefits or costs that have come up?
Yeah. I don't know what the answer on that one. Okay. Next.
Okay, next we had some people in chat. So it looks like Tom Fitzgerald had flagged in chat that he had a question. So Tom.
Hi, Tom Fitzgerald, 61 Rockland Street in Holliston. Just a question. In the last meeting that this planning board had, I think there was a comment or request around the tax revenue. So in the letter, it calls out $1 million tax revenue. And I believe in the last meeting, there was a request to say, what is that in comparison to the total tax revenue that Holliston receives? So either as a percentage or in addition to put this in scope in terms of total benefit to the town in comparison to the total tax dollars from either residents or other businesses.
Well, I mean, they're talking about an increase. The building itself, just look at the building increase. If they're saying it's $80 million just for the building at $18 per thousand, which is our $18.75 is our current tax rate. That's over $1 million. Actually, I think it's closer to $1.5 million. So their numbers from the viewpoint of providing an additional $1 million in revenue on an annual basis is probably a conservative number.
Right. Yep. I'm following the logic, but I think it's more so when the planning board tomorrow has the town meeting to say, this $1 million in comparison to all the other tax dollars that Holliston receives from residents and other businesses, what is this $1 million? Yes.
What's the million a percentage of?
Correct.
Yes, Peter, Glenn Brown here. So in 2019, the town of Holliston, for example, collected around $47 million in property taxes, to kind of give you some perspective.
That's perfect. Thank you very much.
And in addition to, I think we had a chart.
Hey, Glenn, is that the total valuation?
It was, I looked at it from the budget standpoint in terms of what was collected.
Yep.
And the other thing I would also add too is, and this is like 3 or 4 months ago, we had seen a list of the highest, I think it was the 10 or 15 highest commercial tax revenue for all of Holliston. And I think we looked at it, and I think this project was, combined, it was several, if not the entire list.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, next we had a question in the chat from Len Epstein. What about the impact to Holliston abutters?
The impact of Holliston abutters? That was the question?
Yes.
From a financial point of view, I will be honest, I don't think there will be any. I've been on the Board of Assessors since 95 and 96. I don't believe we have during that period of time and don't have today any reduction of any properties that abut industrial property. I don't see that happening here. What would happen is if, in fact, after a period of time, homes within that area did not sell for what we had them for, then ultimately would make adjustments at that point in time. So if that happened, there was a process by which those values would be reduced once data proves that in fact it's happened.
Okay, back to the hand raisers. Matthew.
Had to hit unmute. Matthew Minch, 4 Old Surrey Lane. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. So the Economic Board, I think, has a very strong obligation to do a significant financial analysis, not just look at the tax revenue, because that's all I hear, tax revenue. And at this point, it's somewhat fictitious. Glenn, I do appreciate you at least adding some numbers to the discussion, so I appreciate that. But I still have yet to hear the overall impact of this project, positive and negative. Steve McElhenney, added in this commentary earlier the property values, and it's not just property values. It's also about attracting other businesses to the area. I mean, look at downtown Holliston. It is a very tranquil community. There's family-owned businesses. There's a butcher shop.
I think we've heard all that last time. If you have specifics where you think that letter is wrong or new points, that's fine. But we're not rehashing everything we went over at the last meeting.
Well, Peter, you've done no analysis. I've not seen any analysis at all. All I hear is
The only analysis we're looking at, let me finish. The only analysis we're looking at, and we're all in agreement with, is that if the size of the building they're put up is 800,000 square feet, that's going to be $1 million excess to the town. That's the number. If you disagree with that number, that's fine.
Peter, this is not just about a number. It's about the economic impact to the community. And I think you are sorely mistaken and not completely exhausting the analysis of the overall impact. Who's going to want to move to this town? I'll rest my case, Peter, but I think I think you need to resign.
Thank you. Next.
Anne McElhenney. I'm going to keep butchering your name. I'm sorry.
Thank you. That was good, though. Two things. One, in your letter, you have incorrect information that the Medway abutters were paid $3,000. That is not true. So that should be out of your letter. And my second point, the Economic Council has a video online where you talk about the town of Holliston, about doing business in Holliston with the tagline, Holliston, you're never going to want to leave. And I watched that video recently, and truly it warmed my heart because I love Holliston. Talks about the Holliston we all know as the perfect blend of rural, village, suburban lifestyles. It's a community that suits your needs, the definition of a small town with charm, a distinctive historic village center. The quality of life is the most special thing about Holliston. In fact, even though my address is Medway, I'm technically considered Medway, I do see Holliston as kind of an extension, a part of my hometown. I do my shopping in Holliston. I love to attend Mass at St. Mary's. I'm a member of the Holliston Library. I love to shop at the Holliston Superette. I wouldn't trust my daughter's ears to be pierced anywhere other than Holliston Jewelers. You see, many Medway residents actually see Holliston as an extension, as I do. Sure, Medway High School and Holliston High School are sports rivals, but that's an example of how we strive to support each other and be better. I think those associated with this development, Mr. Milanowski, who we've heard speak before, Mr. John Deli, the landowner, Mr. Bemis, the engineer, and all the others, they've tried to pin the Medway folks against this proposal. They'll say things like we want this, we don't want that, but that's not the main issue here. I mean, the main issue is, does this align with what already exists in the industrial park, in size, in scope, with the type of business that your Economic Council video talks about? Great economic support for a new project, it doesn't appear overnight. It has to be, the details have to be complete. They have to be, information that is forthcoming, rules followed. Business owners, they need to have the trust of their communities. And that's not going to be won if the support's not there. And neither will those big tax revenues. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine, she's right in the sense that your letter talks about paid. We need to change that to say we understand that the decision requires payment. Thank you. Next.
Okay, I don't see any other hand raised. It seems like someone may have had it raised but lowered it. But I didn't catch the name. But I don't see, there's no other questions in the comments and no other hands raised. Oh, I'm sorry, Judy is physically raising her hand.
We got him or no?
She's just on mute.
Oh,
Let me try that. There we go.
Okay. So Judy Blank, 151 South Street. Did you get that?
yeah.
Okay. My question is, can we not, we are concerned about the truck traffic, as you know. Can we not restrict truck traffic on South Street?
I don't believe statutorily, as I mentioned before. I know this was, having been involved in a project that was between two towns. One town wanted to restrict traffic and they couldn't because the roadway ran between two towns. Now, this was probably at least a decade ago. I don't believe the law has changed, but I don't think one town can change it without the agreement of the other, where the road runs between two towns. Travis, do you know of anything different?
Yeah, so just to that point, and this is separate from 555, the town has received quite a bit of feedback on South Street and truck traffic regardless of this project. So we have had discussions with Medway. South Street becomes Clark Street and Medway. And we, to restrict truck traffic entirely on South Street requires sign off by Mass DOT. And we've engaged in those conversations. There's also impacts to other communities outside of Holliston and Medway. So the conversation will be a longer dialogue, but we've already initiated the conversation with Mass DOT. So for a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion, to exclude all truck traffic on South Street over 2.5 tons, requires sign off by Mass DOT, and the town is pursuing that regardless of this conversation of this project. We have heard that from our South Street residents, and the Medway town manager has joined that conversation in support with Mass DOT.
When would they vote on that? Because they could use Route 126 or they could use Beaver Street in Milford, which there are no houses on Beaver Street. Not one. There's a hotel and in Stop and Shop. That's it.
Yeah, so the process for a heavy commercial vehicle exclusion requires that the town and whatever town is impacted would need to prove out the alternative route, right? So that if you're saying a truck can't go this way, where are you telling them to go? So that's going to be part of the analysis that'll go into it before we submit to Mass DOT. The December 5th town meeting in Holliston supported an article that would allow us to collect the data necessary to put in the application to Mass DOT. So we've initiated that process, but it is going to take a little bit of time.
But how much
I think
time?
that's something you need to continue working with the select board on, but it's nothing in the nature of us and the planning board at this stage of the game.
Absolutely. If you'd like to reach out to my office, Ms. Blank, that would be, I'd be happy to follow up.
Okay.
Anybody
Thank you.
else?
Nathan Miller.
Hi, Nathan Miller, 20 Windsor Street. Jobs in the warehouse industry are becoming increasingly easy and profitable to automate. So has it been considered for the report that the amount of jobs that would additionally be created would decrease substantially within the next 5 to 10 years after the facility becomes operational?
That's, those things happen in the future. Those things happen in the future. We don't have any control of that.
Should I say more? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Kate Flannery. Fennery. Sorry, it's so small.
That's a tough one. Don Finieri, 1 Summit Road, Medway, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
one of the abutters. I'm curious of what happened between now and 3 meetings ago with this planning board where you expressed significant concern about the economic advantages of this development. Because you had some serious concerns 2 meetings ago, then last meeting, it's like a complete 180. And I think, could it be because the valuation somehow went from 500,000 to $1 million based on Milanowski's speech at the last meeting? I'm just curious where all the concerns went from the first meeting a few months ago.
Last month?
2 months ago, we had.
2 months ago, we took information, we asked for more information, they came back, they spelled all the economic benefits, and that's what we're looking at. And that was done at the last meeting. And that's what's in Christine's letter, that I think the committee believes that those are significant benefits to the town of Holliston resulting from this project. Now, whether the planning board chooses to make other decisions in regards to the project in and of itself, that's it. We're just looking at responding as far as what we see as the economic benefit.
I guess I'd just like to echo some of the previous comments that, basing your decision on the word of a developer on what he says the town is going to benefit with, that seems...
Without research.
Yeah, it seems like there should be a little more behind it than that.
Well, no, I don't think we're basing anything on the word of the developer. He's got a project that we know that an 800,000 square foot building is going to cost him in that amount of money.
Right.
And the rest of it is the planning board's going to require the looping of a water line. The planning board is going to require the rail trail improvements. The planning board is going to require the signal installation. The planning board is going to require the truck restriction. So everything will be required as part of the decision.
Okay. And so your job as a council is to make this recommendation based on the overall impact of the development economically, on the whole, correct?
Right.
So pluses and minuses.
I'm sorry?
Pluses and minuses, correct?
Yeah.
So
looking at
costs-
what we know about projects and what it's going to benefit.
Costs and benefits though, right, to the town?
Yeah.
And the people of the town.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Suzanne Adelman.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, great. Hi, this is Suzanne Adelman. I live on South Street. And I just want to say on behalf of a lot of the residents of South Street and the folks backing up in Medway and a lot of people who are unaware of this project here in Holliston, that your buy-off on this is a little sad. I honestly believe, and we all honestly believe, that this project is outsized for this town. It is inappropriate. You're going to, the traffic increase, not just on South Street, but on Washington Street. $1 million a year in taxes, is that what we're hearing? That sounds like a lot of money, but I'm sorry. I think that the damage you're going to be doing to the town by welcoming them in far exceeds that. And my heart goes out to our abutters up in Medway and all my neighbors here on South Street and Washington Street, because I think that this group of people is dangling this money in front of a small town and saying this is going to be your answer. And it's not. I honestly think that the damage is much, much higher than the taxes that you're going to see. And that's honestly what I feel needs to be said here. And that's it.
Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Anybody else? I don't see it. All right, so that's it. So we got a couple changes to the letter, the correction on the decision requirement rather than payment and everything else. Committee members, we're limited to you at this stage of the game. Any other comments on the letter with those corrections?
No other comments on the letter. with the corrections, comments on the comments quickly. The voices that have spoken during all these meetings, the voices have been heard. We have listened to everything that's been said. We certainly appreciate and respect your positions, and they have been persuasive. But the one challenge that has been continually presented to us has been to speculate based upon information that hasn't been presented from a competing point of view here. We keep getting opinions and subjective positions and interpretations of, feelings, and, those things are challenging to work with when you're trying to formulate a position. So it's a challenge to ask of us to arrive at certain conclusions without any information being presented, to the contrary of what's in the letter, right? And that, I think, is possibly one of the things that may be leading to your own frustration, right? I don't know that any of us should be in a position to speculate about, property values of other people in other towns, or what things could look like 5 to 10 years from now. It's a challenging thing to consider, but I do want you to know that your opinions are heard and they're appreciated and they're understood. They're just hard to quantify when you're looking at things from an economic benefit perspective.
Okay, anybody else on the committee?
Peter Glenn Brown again. I would just add, if we can find the data of the commercial tax revenues that were generated for the town of Holliston in 2019, and potentially include a total of, say, the top 10 or the top 20 businesses, as well as also the revenue that was taken in by the town from property taxes, as well as for 2019.
I don't remember the numbers. I think the percentages are roughly, I think what we have for the town is the quote, commercial, industrial, and personal property, I think is about 12% of our total valuation.
Correct. I understand that. I think what I want to do though is, yeah, I understood. I think what I'm asking though is to have specifics in terms of, for example, I cited the 47 million. What I'd like to see happen is actually look that up and get the exact number. If it's 47.2, let's put that in the letter as an example.
Explain what you want in the letter, because I can get the information from the assessors.
The property taxes in terms of what was taken in for the town in 2019. 2020 is available. Great, we'll take that.
The overall property tax?
Yep, generated for the town revenues. And then the other thing would be the commercial base. What were the revenues from the commercial base for the town overall?
Of that portion of the overall.
Of the overall, yep.
Okay, yeah, I can.
So this gives you some scale in terms of what it is that we're looking at.
Christine, I'll get that to you in the morning.
Okay.
If you want to add that to the letter, you could draft out now and they'll just get me the letter. I'll fill in the numbers.
Thank you.
All right. If not, with those changes on the, go ahead.
Sorry, there's another hand raised. Do we want to continue to take comment?
What's that?
Someone just raised their hand. Are we continuing to take
very quickly, please. Yeah.
Okay, Nathan.
Hi, this is Janice Miller at 208 Winthrop Street. I appreciate all the work that the board has been doing, but I also want to, and I recognize that you are recognizing our concerns. However, I haven't heard anyone outside of the board today in favor of this. And, we can't be doing this research for you to state numbers and why this economically would be detrimental to Holliston.
That's an ultimate decision for the planning board. We're just providing what our input is on the financial basis.
Right. I just want to say that it doesn't seem balanced. If what you were doing was an assessment of the economic value to Holliston, it seems that it's only related to taxes and tax revenue. And to put a letter forth that doesn't really recognize the cons, there were a couple that were mentioned there, I think, doesn't show that you're really representing the town of Holliston and what the potential detriment might be. And, yeah, that takes a lot of research to show what that might look like 10 years from now. But I think that's part of your job. Anyway, thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, so does somebody want to make a motion to send that letter with the changes?
Make a motion to send the letter.
I got Matt on a motion, Glenn on a second. We'll have a roll call vote. Myself, aye. Matt?
Aye.
Glenn?
Aye.
Christine?
Aye.
All right, so we will send that letter saying they meet tomorrow night. They are forced to, they have the happy decision as to whether the project makes sense for Holliston. But I think it's supporting our mission to provide input as to what the financial aspects of the project are. So thank you, folks. That's where we're at. Moving on to the agenda. Downtown, the only thing I guess I get to report, and Travis sent me a note, is that the demolition of 9 Green Street is moving forward by a group called Perry Corp. And I don't have a specific date. Travis, do you have info on that?
Yeah, so that was another one at the December town meeting that got approved, was for the planning. So we're not demoing, we're creating a demolition plan, which also includes site review. One thought was to bring in somebody from the Economic Development Committee, just follow along and sort of offer any, liaison to it. And so I had seen Mr. Coletti asking questions about 9 Green Street before, so I just asked if he wanted to sort of sit in on the kickoff meeting. But if there's more people who would be interested or anything like that, maybe if this group wanted to appoint somebody I could work with directly and then report back to the group on a consistent basis, that might be helpful. So the PAIR Corporation, PAR, I believe actually they call it, is the first task on what was approved at December town meeting, is the demo plan, which is going to coincide with what we're doing with DEP on the site. The next part would be, once we get through the demo plan, would be putting together an overall site plan, which then could be presented to the town as early as the May town meeting. We do have in the contract with PAR that we would like, at the very least, a sort of demo plan that would be given to us before the warrant closes, which is going to close March 29th. The warrant is now open for the annual town meeting. So that's where we are with that.
Okay.
And Peter, Matt here, just acknowledging that I am willing to participate and share in the 9 Green Street discussions.
Great. In that local recovery program, you had an update on that?
Yeah, it was interesting. Actually, I wanted to, in case, I wanted to have an update for you tonight. I sent you all the info on all the application. The application requires that we would put together a group. Again, the group that we have, sort of different groups, the Economic Development Committee, we've done some things through HCAT. There's a Holliston Together group. So in the application, I put, obviously, the Economic Development Committee, we would want to be involved in that, and those two. So I sent an email just to them so I'd have something to report to you tonight on where we are with the application. And I was surprised when they said, essentially, we'll get back to you shortly with the consultant that we're going to be providing to you. So I take that as a good sign that we're going to get awarded, but I did not get an award letter. So more to come, I suppose. But again, that would be one where the Economic Development Committee would be represented on this group. The consultant will be provided through the LRRP program, which is through, the Mass Downtown Initiative under DHCD. And so it seems like a good program, and it's also going to be very fast moving. So they should be coming up with some recommendations, come into downtown for the Economic Development Committee to work with and discuss. And yeah, so that's exciting. But again, I don't have an official letter, but it sounds like we'll be getting assigned a consultant soon.
We'll keep that on next month's agenda, but it sounds like you need a liaison. Can you kind of spell out what that means from the report of the person and the time commitment for the next meeting?
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm not sure on the time commitment, quite honestly. It's going to be, all right, the consultant's going to come in and I'm just going to be, it's going to be fast moving. So if you're meeting monthly, just want to make sure I have somebody I can sort of talk to more frequently than that. Obviously, I can update the committee, but I can't have, ongoing conversations with all the members. So if you wanted to appoint somebody that could be the sort of direct contact in the meantime, that would probably be helpful.
Okay.
The idea of this particular program is that we're not paying a consultant. They're not giving us grant money and we're doing it. They're giving us a consultant and they're paying them directly. And these people are going to come in and sort of look at downtown. What I put in the application is what I would consider our downtown area to our Blair Square area is the village commercial under the zoning.
Mm-hmm.
And I put that as the application. So it's a relatively good sized space, but it's got a few businesses as you saw in the application. So if there was somebody who wanted to kind of lead point, obviously we'll bring all the information back to the EDC, but it may just help as this thing is moving quickly.
Any volunteers?
Yeah, it's Matt again. I don't mind doing that unless Christine or Glenn has a burning desire, but I, again, don't mind.
No, I'm happy to help out, Matt, if it's with that in the 9 Green Street. It's too much. Just let me know.
Perfect.
There you go. All right. Sounds good. The other thing in the nature of kind of legislative update things, I had seen the emails that our grant program has been passed by both the House and the Senate and is being sent to the governor's office. So I'll list that for our meeting next time. I'll pull out what I had in the nature of guidelines from other communities, but if that legislation gets passed, we'll have to start on that. Matt, I think at one stage of the game, you were in the process of drafting a letter to some of the banks, right?
Yeah, I can re-up that effort.
Yeah, so
I do have a draft letter somewhere.
If you can organize that and send it around, we can talk about it at the next meeting. I'll get what other information I had, and we can have a good discussion on that to try to move forward to go out and get some of these banks and see if we can get some funding, now that we would presumably have legislation to show them, because I take it we'll have to adopt a set of guidelines or make recommendations for adoption of a set of guidelines and let the Board of Selectmen sign off on those as the program runs forward.
That's right. Peter, before we move too far off downtown too, I just want to acknowledge that on, I think, Monday night, I attended the select board meeting when Bobby Blair presented a proposal about a farmer's market that he was working to organize and has actually made a fair amount of effort on it. I would recommend that we help support the efforts of Bobby Blair and any other persons that he might be coordinating with in terms of organizing that effort and providing them, support for structure and logistics and kind of adopting that initiative as part of our ongoing agenda.
Yep.
It seemed like that was a concern of the select board, and I think we're well equipped to help with that. So I'm proposing that we include Bobby Blair and his farmers market on our go forward agenda.
Yeah. Christine and Glenn, in the past, we had talked about that, and I will say that Bobby had contacted me a week or so ago to say he was going before the select board. So I personally sent an email to the select board saying that the committee had talked about it in the past, was supportive of the use of Blair Square for a farmer's market and other activities to help the businesses in the area. And the only things in those discussions we had in the past was just having a general concern. I said, I don't think the issue of a farmer's market, because of the limited nature of that, would impact those. But the only comment I made was that, use of the things need to consider impacts upon the business area, businesses in the area based upon taking up their parking spaces in use of bathrooms. So that was a letter I said that the committee in the past has supported use of Blair Square for kind of business opportunities for the area. So I'll make sure that's on the list.
Peter, one quick comment on this. We did get a chat. Bobby is on the phone and wanted to comment on
Okay, yeah.
Bobby.
*9.
If he's on the phone, he can actually hit *6 if he wants to speak.
Chris, can you unmute him by yourself?
No, I can't. He has to hit *6.
I only see him on video, on non-video.
So,
Bobby,
continue on.
if you want to speak, you got to dial *9 on your phone.
*6 to physically unmute.
If not, just continue your meeting.
Yeah, he might not be called in anymore. Just chat us if you're still there. We'll add you in later. All right, let's get.
All right. All right.
Let's keep moving, and if Bobby reaches back out.
And so, Glenn Brown, so with the farmers market, what was the idea of the time frame? Would it be like early June on Saturdays from like 9 to 12? What's kind of the proposed time, days?
Matt, Travis?
Beginning, end?
Yeah, it was, I believe it was Sundays 10 to 2 or something of that nature. And Matt was there, so he could hop in. I think it was, he clearly had put a lot of thought, had talked to a lot of different groups, including the Rail Trail Committee, AgCom. He talked to a lot of different groups. I think the question that I left with was sort of who's the point of contact, right? If it's going to be, the town isn't running it through a revolving fund or something of that nature, right? I just need somebody who I'm dealing with. Probably a 501c3, I think, was brought up, or a specific group that's already set up to sort of handle, there's going to need to be probably a police detail. We'll have to figure out sort of trash removal and those types of things. But I think Bobby had clearly thought through, the one that he came up, the comparison he came up to was the Natick Farmers Market, where it's a difficult place to sort of set up, break down. They have a whole schedule of when you show up, where you move your car, when you come pick up. And so those things, from my perspective, the town's perspective, is just we're going to need to know, who we're dealing with to coordinate. I think we still need to work that out, sort of business plan of how, pay some of those costs. If it's going to be a town revolving fund, I have some leeway to do that. But his thought, the way he presented it, and Matt can correct me, I think he was saying start in June, go through October, Sundays. The time he thought about wouldn't coincide with some other businesses that would need parking in the area. He thought was going to work out well, and I think he'd already reached out to them. So clearly, a lot of legwork had been put in, and I have a couple questions I'm going to have to follow up with him on from the town side. Matt,
Yeah, that's a fair summary. Yep.
Okay. So, again, anything we do to support that activity, I think makes sense. All right. Website, did we want to agree to have Chris do whatever he needs to do to set up that business directory?
Yeah, I think we considered that. And if you need a motion, I'll make a motion to have Chris enable that functionality. I don't think there was much effort or cost associated, if I recall.
Yeah. You were a
Second. Yeah, second.
Any other discussion? Myself, aye. Christine?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Glenn?
Glenn, aye.
All right.
And Chris, if you want some help with that, or in terms of how we're going to get some of that data from the businesses, I'd be glad to help out on that.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, once we get it set up, I'll send it over to you so you can just kind of look at what it entails, but pretty straightforward.
Yeah, why don't you guys chat and see if you can come up with a plan that maybe we can all assist to get businesses to sign up for it. Certainly communication with the Holliston Business Association would probably be step number one,
Right. And I think also to the information that we're capturing. So for example, does the website does this directory allow links for the businesses to their Facebook page, to their LinkedIn, to the Twitter? And you can't have 7 different things. You typically got to choose 2 or 3 and be consistent throughout. So those are things that we need to kind of, I think through and what that looks like to make it more than just simply a listing with a phone number and a website.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion again.
Why don't you do that? We'll have it on the meeting. I mean, we saw in the supplies, we got supplies money. Maybe when that all gets organized, we can take a, snapshot of what it would be and list what it would be. And we can get a business list mailing from the town and maybe send out a letter to some folks with it, and maybe they'll sign up. All right. Minutes.
Oh,
Yeah.
hold on one second, Peter. We have a hand raised.
Okay.
If that caller, it's 6763 wants to unmute, *6.
*9.
Oh, *9. Okay.
Oh, you did it.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, Peter.
Yeah?
Bobby Blair.
Hey.
Hey, Travis summed that up pretty good, and so didn't Matt. But I came away feeling after the meeting with the selectmen that, I don't know if they thought I was going to be a revenue stream for the town. There was other issues also, parking, a business plan, and as far as the monies go, and the idea of a 501c3, which some people have told me, that can take 2 months to a year. At this point, I don't know if the chase is worth the catch.
Well, I don't know. We could probably consider feasibility in all of those points in the scope of this committee in advance of, your June kind of deadline. There might be alternatives to a 501c3 that could give them equal comfort that can be done in a lot shorter amount of time. The other challenge with the 501c3 is there's reporting to the state, and you also there's difficulties with dissolving it, right? So it might be a bit of an extreme approach for a pretty informal gathering here. So, we can do some feasibility discussion without writing it off entirely, because I think the idea does have merit. So,
Why don't you guys, if you got two guys can chat a little bit before the next meeting, and we'll chat about it at the next meeting when we have some more info. Robbie, I think the committee's in full support, and we'll try to help you any way we can, I think.
Okay, I had just tried to come up with some figures, and, police detail, figuring on 4 hours, it might be $150 or so. Porta potty, another $150. And my thinking is 15 vendors, and I'm taking that from Medway. And if you're only charging them $25, it comes up at $300. So I know that Hopkinton asked for sponsors over there. I don't know their finances, but we're cutting it kind of close there.
Yep. Yeah, chat. I may have some contacts to help that out. Let me make a phone call, and we can chat about it at our next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So that was it for the website. Did people get a chance to look at the minutes from the last meeting? Any questions, comments? Somebody want to make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the meetings.
second.
All right, myself, aye. Glenn,
Aye.
Matt,
Aye.
Christine,
Hi.
thank you. I didn't get anything in the nature of whether anything is new pending applications before zoning or planning, so there's nothing to do there. Travis sent around the master plan as it stands now, and I understand there's some discussion at the select board level to look at that going forward. I don't know exactly what those discussions are, but we had raised it at the last meeting. So, Travis, can you update us on what the select board is discussing?
So at this point, obviously I've been here a little under 6 months now, and I've heard, I've heard reference to it. So I wanted to make sure it was available. It's been digitized, put on the website. It is from 1999, as you can see if you flip through it. It's a little dated. Clearly could use anywhere from an update to an overhaul. Those are costly. I know, I've sort of been keeping my eye out on the grant opportunities, because community development, these things do pop up, and if we could get that done through a grant, I think that would be, nobody would be opposed to it. If I'm unable to sort of find anything applicable right now, obviously most grant opportunities are focused towards COVID, and that's the LRRP that will be focusing specifically on downtown. I think we need obviously to look holistically at the town at some point soon. 1999, we're over 20 years. I think, we're due. So if at the end of the day it needs to come and get a warrant article in front of town meeting, then so be it. That's probably going to be the next step. I think, town meeting and the finance committee and the select board and EDC and all other groups are going to want to know that, we sort of did our due diligence before it gets paid for through tax dollars. So that's kind of where I am at the moment. But I think, I haven't heard anybody sort of indicate that it's not needed. So I think, we're going to find support for it. I don't know if that's on a May 2021 timeline, October or next year. But I think, in the not too distant future, we're going to have a conversation about updating that. So if the EDC has, feedback, there's specific shortcomings that we can address in the interim, I'd be happy to sort of take that back to them. I don't know that, we haven't had as a conversation at the select board that this will be something that is going to be on and I think, the planning board, zoning board, those things are major components of it. So I think there's going to need to be conversations that get vetted through those groups as well. And so that's where I am. I mean, obviously relatively new to town, but, certainly an overarching priority that has been, was clear to me when I came into town.
Would a letter from us to the select board recommending that be discussed and put before town meeting in May make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think it would be helpful to me, if the group wanted to look at the existing plan and sort of point out the obvious from an economic development standpoint, what we're missing, what would help you as a group, that we clearly don't have direction on as a town from an economic development standpoint. I think that would be very valuable, because, the things that, you've sort of been discussing, for the town to have direction on in a master plan that we can all sort of rely on as various committees and boards in town, I think is, that would help your group. And I think pointing out where that current plan falls short would be very valuable to the conversation.
All right, so why don't people got that link? So look at that. We'll have it on next meeting. Hopefully we can take a vote to say, we support moving forward with an update, and we can identify things that we think would be crucial as part of that review. Make sense to folks?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. Last thing I see on the agenda is new business. Anybody got anything new? No? All right, so we'll go back to our regular second Wednesday of the month for February. We'll get out the notice, we'll get out the minutes. Christine, you want to get me that letter with the missing data, and I'll get that filled in. Planning board meets tomorrow night, so we'll get that letter to them before then.
Yeah, Peter, I'll add in the edits I captured. If you could add in the water loop edit that you wanted, that would be helpful to me.
Yep, easily done. All right, if that's it, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Second, myself, aye. Christine?
Aye.
Matt?
Aye.
Glenn?
Aye.
Thank you all, and have a good evening.
Thank you.
Aye.